All right. Okay, so Tony Zerbin and Tara Boothby here. We are chatting yet again. And with this theme, we're just discussing different angles, different team members, the conveyor belt of life transition. So what do you think, Tony? Like we talk about these things like when we go through crisis or difficult times or difficult life choices, it impacts us.
Totally. And that's the thing is whether it's a good transition, whether it's a hard transition or negative or however you want to frame it, all transitions take a lot more energy. And
Yes.
that means we're more likely to get pushed into our coping, and you're more likely to see all kinds of dysfunction come out that way.
Yeah, and good or bad. I
Good or
remember
bad.
when good or bad. So the good stuff is it's stressful or it's taxing on our system, on our body. We have a response. There's feelings, there's sensations inside, and there's emotion and there's thoughts, all these things, whether it's good or bad. And then how do we cope?
Totally.
So are we seeking relationship? Are we moving inward? Are we popping out into vice behavior?
Totally. Right. Are we getting a lot more suspicious of life this way, right?
Oh,
Are we
that's a
getting
huge
cold
one.
feet?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the suspicion, the cold feet, the overzealousness, all or nothing thinking. There's all these different sort of ways that we navigate it, and we strategize would be an attachment language to pair with coping.
Totally. And it's really normal for people to try to make transition something symbolic. That's how we try to cope with it and make meaning through transitions too. We just passed through the fall equinox. I think that was October,
Yeah,
or no, September
September.
21st. And I mean, that's the point where the day and then the night are supposed to be equal length,
Yeah,
right? And ancient cultures had all kinds of stories about all kinds of cool things that happen at that time of year.
yeah. And
But
you bring up this point of transition and tradition,
mhm,
which is an interesting parallel right now. Like we're going through all of these transition times, lockdowns, unlocks, vaccines, no vaccines, like all of this mask, no mask transitions, but there's no real way to sort of anchor ourselves into this like tradition.
right,
This is a known thing. There's this continual perpetual unknowing on this
right,
conveyor belt of transition right now. And that
right,
feels bad.
totally. And you're seeing it be a lot harder for people through all transitions right now because all our normal vehicles for transition, if you will, that our cultures usually provide for us, most of them aren't allowed right now. So if you think about it, whether you come from like an ethnic background that has its own cultural practices, or you come through a religious community, your major life transitions are usually shepherded, guided, incorporated into that system. So there's a formula or a ritual that you go through when, hey, you're welcoming a new baby to the family. You're celebrating a new union, a new partnership. There's death as a transition. There's moving into new homes. A lot of religious systems have rituals for that too. And it's how we make meaning and how we guide each other through one known way of living into a new way of living that's not yet fully known.
Right. And even the seasons, we have all of these normal traditional transitions, whether it's fall solstice, winter solstice, summer solstice, Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's Day, and these benchmark traditions of like, how am I seeing where I'm at on the timeline of the year and seeing what's coming next? It's sort of a way to titrate and
Yeah,
pace ourselves with transition of
yeah,
season, time, maybe something that's uncomfortable. People who have SADS, like seasonal affective disorder,
yeah,
there's a knowledge. It's like, okay, well, Valentine's Day or Lent or Easter, that there's some benchmark.
yeah,
And so it's strange right now. And our typicalness is, again, this: how do I use these things to self-regulate or co-regulate?
hmm,
So the community piece, when you're drawing on the idea of tradition and religion.
Hmm. Totally. I mean, if you're thinking very practical, right now, through our seasons of various forms of lockdown, various forms of measures, it's like, how do we make meaning in this time? How do you have a meaningful wedding? How do you celebrate a meaningful funeral in a way where you work together to usher the transition through, right? One person funerals feel really challenging. So we need people to support us through all these transitions. Otherwise, we really suffer. We really struggle.
We suffer, and we're isolated, and so there's like this, the confusion. I think it's so useful to point out our confusion about self-regulation and
Totally.
co-regulation. Of course we are. All of the system that we had been used to about how to be in self-regulation and co-regulation without being cognizant of it is no longer.
Yep.
So even the self-regulation of walking through a shopping mall and having an experience. I've had a week. I'm going to go shopping on the weekend. And I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
And now it's frightening. Do I need a vaccine passport? Do I have to wear a mask? Like, what is, all of these different pieces that change those abilities, these big transitions that have happened for us. And then some of our self-regulating strategies can be pulled away from us.
Mm-hmm.
Just as our co-regulation is messed up right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
The isolation makes it so hard because it's like, okay, I need these little traditions, these little rituals to make it through transitions, and I need people. And the two are really hard to pull apart because it's with other people. I mean, this is the ground of therapy. It's another person in the room with you that can kind of help you keep your feet in the ground while you're dealing with hard stuff, right? That's what a lot of these traditions we've inherited are all about too. So now, I mean, the question and all these regulations, all these lockdowns and things is, our familiar traditions and rituals to get us through transitions aren't available. Our usual way of co-regulating might not be available.
Yeah.
So how do we think about pulling different elements together and saying, okay, I can't do it this way, but I need the support to go through a transition well. Yeah. So what's a new way of doing that? How do I make a new tradition?
And how do I notice the limits on my old ways of coping and strategizing and honor? Yeah, it's limited. Like, let's just be honest, like as you and I are, our coping strategies are limited. And then how do I free myself to grieve that loss and to uncover? Because we need a new way of being. That's what transition is about.
Yeah.
And grief doesn't end. We're going to grieve what we had before. And maybe we'll have some type of version of it in the future, but we don't get back.
Right.
We don't get it back.
Totally. I mean, this is the importance of sadness. This is what I'm sharing with my clients a lot lately. This is a big theme is if we can make space for sadness, it's not that once we're done being sad, we never grieve again, but it's that allowing ourselves to be sad allows our sadness to mature.
Exactly.
So we're not stuck being the same kind of sad we were 30 years ago.
Right.
But it's a new sadness. It's integrated through our transition.
Yeah.
We're hanging on to the good, and maybe we're letting go of some things, but we're hanging on to things as well.
Yeah. So own it, feel it, be present, and just noticing that this is a hard time and we're confused about how to lean into ourselves and others, but we still need to.
Totally.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony.